now we'll have the panel discussion. I request you, Dr. Srikanth, to please moderate.
Yeah. Thank you, Kumar. I think after a long marathon of talks, let's get into the final segment, which is the panel discussion. I think let me start off a very good evening and warm welcome to all of you, all the participants. I think who are sitting from morning 10 till now, and even the panelists who are there, who are going to discuss about their opinions and views today. So the topic for today's discussion would be e-learning challenges and opportunities during COVID-19 pandemic. I think this is a very relevant topic in today's era because we are still in the crisis. So the thing is, let me set the background. Then I'll request all the panelists to speak about their views and opinions. So the background behind selecting this topic, which is e-learning challenges and opportunities during COVID-19 pandemic, is I think we're all aware that due to COVID-19 pandemic, I think many students were not able to physically attend the classroom sessions, and were completely compelled to access through online mode, which severely affected the education sector. And am I right? And many institutions were not ready to adopt and adapt to online education, online learning due to limited resources, non-preparedness, lack of capacity building, and know-how in using these tools and aids basically. So R&D efforts in education and technologies have also gained importance during this era, where they had very high demand for online education, starting from school level to higher education. So today, e-learning is recognized as one of the important technological aid for offering online education, skilling, and capacity building programs. Though online tools are available in the market, there are several implementation challenges, issues, which require a lot of focus on seamless integration with the present education system which we are in. So more research need to be done to address these issues related to especially scalability, performance, security, seamless access, immersive experience, personalized learning, content delivery, accessibility, and as well as language barriers, basically, especially using these emerging technologies such as IoT, blockchain, and so, which were told by our eminent speakers. So the thing is, today to discuss on this topic, which is e-learning challenges and opportunities during this pandemic, we have eminent speakers with us. That is Dr. N. Sharat Chandra Babu, Dr. Angel Ratnabai, Dr. Madhuri Dubey, and Mr. Jayant Sen, who will be sharing their views and opinions on this panel discussion topic today. So let me first start off with a brief discussion about their profiles. Then later we can start off with the discussions on this point. So I take this pleasure to introduce our panel chair today, who is Dr. Sharat. So I think morning already Kumar has introduced, but let me give a brief glimpse about him. So Dr. Sharat is currently working as Executive Director of Society for Electronic Transactions and Security, which is SETS, which is located in Chennai, which is under PSO Office, Government of India. So Dr. Sharat, I think I'll take your permission to brief your profile. So I would say that this LLTech program is completely his brainchild. So that is what I would say, and he's also responsible for conducting many national conferences, such as we are seeing today, which is LLTech India, Hands On with ARM, Think Parallel, Vertex, DNS Security, and so. And he has published a lot of around 75 papers in national and international conference. And he's a senior member of IEEE, ACM, CSI, and fellow IT. So this is his brief profile. So let me take to the next panelist. She's Dr. Madhuri Dubey. I think let me give a brief introduction about her. So Dr. Madhuri Dubey founded a National Skills Network, which is NSN. I think we can access it through www.nationalskillsnetwork.in. So it's a completely a detailed platform where we can share a positive impact of skilling and vocational training to bridge the gap between the industry and the education. And the platform is also completely on 5 E's. One is economy, education, employability, employment, and entrepreneurship. So this has become a powerful tool to support advocacy and communication in evolving skills industry in India. So this is a brief profile about Dr. Madhuri Dubey. Let me talk about the next panel member, who is Mr. Jayant Sen. I think Jayant heads Qlytics Business Solutions. So which is for a digital learning, technology, and analytics. And he has 20 years of rich cross-cultural experience leading to business solutions and so sales and operations across India, USA, and Middle East. So this is about Mr. Jayant Sen. I think then let me introduce our next panel member, who is Dr. Angel Ratnabai. She's currently working as assistant professor in Central Institute of Educational Technology. So a constituent unit of National Council of Education Research and Training. and she has a complete subject background in math, psychology, and education. And her doctor research was in capacity building of these teachers for integrating information and communication technology in the teaching learning process. So if you look at, she has coordinated in ICT in education curriculum projects and developed several courses which can be accessed in ictcurriculum.gov.in. So I think a lot more about her is there. So this is a brief profile about Madam. So as part of this panel discussion, what we'll do is we'll set up some guidelines, like each speaker will be given 5 minutes to speak about their opinion about the topic which we have discussed and share their views on this. And at the end of that, I think participants will be asking questions, and we can discuss among us and set the ball rolling basically. So now currently I request Dr. Sharat Chandra Babu sir to kindly make an opening remarks and set the stage for panel discussion. Sir, over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Srikanth.
Just one moment. I think Dr. Madhuri is also a panelist, right?
Pardon, sir?
Dr. Madhuri is also a panelist, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Why didn't you introduce her?
Already introduced, sir.
Introduce.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yes,
sorry.
yes,
I was
sir.
listening to all three of you, but I missed
no,
the introduction of Dr. Madhuri.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I know her very well. That's the reason why. Sorry about it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Srikanth. I feel this is a second opportunity for today. I think morning when I delivered the talk, I thought I have expressed some of my views. So I don't want to take much of our time. We would like to listen to these three panelists, Madhuri, Jayanta, and Angel. And in fact, there's a nice combination. Madhuri comes from the skills development background and had a industry exposure as well. And she has been into, giving not just into the high-end IT, but looking at the employability skills imparting through National Skills Development Program. She can look at that angle while she is explaining to, the COVID pandemic impact on, education and how e-learning is going to be useful. And Jayanta Sen comes from industry. So industry is actually, has really, it has, the pandemic has affected them, and to the extent that almost they are working from home for right from last year, and it is going to continue. So that is the kind of, but they were able to gear up most likely that using the technologies, and also the e-learning has become an important thing for them, imparting skills for enhancing their own employees. They will continue to the recruitment as well. So he would give us that industry perspective in this direction. And we have Angel Madam, who is Dr. Angel, who has actually comes from the educational background, and she would definitely give us the educational perspective based on the present topic. So we'll get three different angles from these three panelists. I would like to listen to them, and probably that would be a good thing. And in fact, I would be happy at the end of these three speakers, Mangal sir would like to say something connecting to what they have done, and if there is any gap that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
I request.
I don't know.
Yeah, sir. Thank you, sir.
I request Madhuri to.
Yes.
Yeah, you see. Yeah. Dr. Madhuri.
Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, if possible, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sharat Babu, sir. Nice to see Professor Mangal Sundar Krishnan, Professor Kamal Bijlani, and of course, all the seniors from CDAC like Kumar and Lakshmi and others. I'm very happy to be participating in this panel and sharing my experience. As sir just said, ages ago, when I associated myself with CDAC and LN Tech, I was a typical corporate employee working in e-learning. But during the last 6 years, my life has transformed a lot. Ever since I launched a digital platform to promote skilling, vocational education and training, and employability skills, and I think that has given me a very rich experience, which, as sir said just now, would be a new dimension that perhaps I will be adding to all the experts who have gathered here and all the audience who have been listening and interacting with the experts and the presentations that are being made. So I would like to get started by sharing few general points about the pandemic. As we are aware, I don't have to repeat, we are still going through the crisis, but when it comes to education, training, skill development, particularly vocational education and training, which is being given a huge push in India, both from the central government, the state government, and also the corporate sector, the industry. I think this had a very different kind of a challenge when the pandemic, when we were going through, when we were living through the crisis, when we were living through the panic and the pandemonium which it created last year. So I would like to just narrate few examples about how certain people coped with the pandemic, adopting, I won't say e-learning, but digital technologies to promote or to embrace online learning. Just to give you a small example, there is this organization called Apparel Training Design Center, which has branches, centers all over the country, 35 centers or so. They teach people apparel design and training, which is like dressmaking, apparel making, fashion designing, and other things. One of the courses which they offer is at the very entry level kind of a courses, which is for a sewing machine operator. So if I tell you the story of how sewing machine operator course was being offered with the help of WhatsApp and Zoom, maybe you would have heard about similar examples elsewhere. But for me, when I was auditing these courses, they just told me, they invited me, they said, why don't you sit through some of the courses? Then I was attending a couple of sessions from very remote places in West Bengal, where the instructor was trying to teach the students about making, pattern making, which is one of the skills, and stitching and design and communication skills, and so many things which are a part of the curriculum for months together. So you see, this is the way India learns through online learning. And if we cannot reach out to them using the tools and technologies that we have, then I'm afraid we will not be achieving our purpose. So very creatively they tried to put together something, because everybody had to survive the pandemic. Everybody had to just continue with what they were doing. Every institution, every organization in education and training, they all felt, okay, let's not stop, because people are at home, they cannot come to the colleges and training centers. So they found some way, some jugaad kind of thing, but there was some result, there was some outcome. It may not be like how it was in the classroom, but certainly it helped them continue and keep pace with these courses, mainly in vocational and skilling space, where it is absolutely a challenge to bring the students to the classroom, and then when they go back home, because of their constraints, because of their social condition, because of their economic condition, it's difficult to again bring them back to the classroom. So I was very happy to see that I just gave you one example, but there were hundreds of them like that, where WhatsApp became a tool. Zoom was something like, our everyday parlance. Everybody was talking about Zoom. So you see, these things came together, and a new kind of e-learning was what India was adopting last year, exactly 1 year or 14 months ago. So from there, I think we have come a very long way today, where e-learning is, if I have to recollect how the discussions would be about 20 years ago with Professor Dr. Sharad Chandra and Sharad Babu and with others, I remember Professor Mangal Sundar Krishnan, and there were these LL Tech events, and those were the times when we used to wonder about, okay, how do we promote e-learning? How do we educate people? How do we evangelize it? How do we make them use these tools? So from those days, I think suddenly one push came from pandemic, and including the parents, everybody became a part of the e-learning fraternity. They became a part of the e-learning ecosystem. Now, few challenges which the vocational and skill development space, or rather any practical oriented education and training space faces today, is offering the practical component. So it was easy in a way to give them the theory classes. If I give you the example of ITIs, industrial training institutes in India. Now there is a push again from the government to rebrand the ITIs, to do a lot with them in terms of offering not only the typical kind of mechatronics or the CNC operator kind of training, but also 3D printing or any of the AI ML kind of training. Even these courses are going to be given through the ITI. So you see, there is a change, there's a shift happening in the larger scenario of a skill development and vocational system. So here is where we need help from experts who are connected with CDAC and similar institutions in India, where we need systems, where we need platforms, where we need tools, which can help them access I would say practical demonstrations, hands-on, technology, like maybe haptics, like for example, haptics technology is being used for training on welding technologies, painting technologies, spray painting technologies. So all these are being used with some touch and things like that. I have seen quite a few demos of such simulators, but how do we extend this to maybe other kinds of practical training? Because there is a lacuna here. And why I'm saying this is because I think today all of us have accepted that blended learning or phygital mode of learning is the way to go. Even though students will come back to classes, colleges will start, but I think where it will create a big differences for accessing, giving access to more people. So what I mean to say here is that in scaling up our initiatives, in bringing more students into the fold, maybe these models will go, will become more popular, and they might get adopted in a much more friendlier way. But only issue there is the gap we have to offer the practical component. So I would like to summarize my points, by highlighting just 2 or 3 aspects about how things are going today. I think what we need to look at to cover every social strata of the people in our country is affordability. So like, the people who help us at home, for example, the house help at my place, her grandchildren could not attend the classes. So I had to give them my old mobile phone. I'm sure all of you have done that. You would have given away an old laptop or a phone when this pandemic was raging, and the children had to attend these online classes, and parents could not afford to buy those devices. So devices. Then second is technology. Okay, in villages or in rural areas, is the bandwidth good for them to download or watch a video? Like I gave you the example of how ATDC was offering an apparel design course. They went to the extent of the trainer was telling the students, please take a picture of what you have just now stitched and share the picture, because there could not be any live interaction, even though it was supposed to be a live kind of a thing. So the students were painfully taking the pictures and sharing it on WhatsApp, and the teacher was giving feedback on that. So areas like purchasing the devices, access to data, access to a good data connection, I think these are still big issues that we need to look at. Like I said, pandemic gave us a push, but now it is for us to take it very positively and make the best use of it to reach out to all kinds of people in India for education and training. And second and most important, besides affordability, I think is access to good content, access to quality content, where because of pandemic, I think every teacher became a designer, every teacher had to face the camera, but poor teachers, were they really prepared? I think most of them were very scared to even face the camera, but there was no other way, they had to do it. But maybe in future, some of the teachers can be trained to use these technologies, and design and deliver those classes. Not only that, some element of design, like from some use of instructional design principles could also be incorporated, so that the blended learning happens in a very professional way and the desired outcomes can be achieved. And third and most important point for me is, besides designing and creating content, customizing the content using local languages and being able to deliver this content in local languages, not just by converting a book into an ebook, like several courses that were being offered throughout the last year. I think that was just a quick fix kind of a thing, where the entire textbook was, I don't know what was done to the textbook, but then it was it was transformed into an ebook kind of a thing, and they were circulating these books. But as we know, that's not how learning happens online. So a lot of education has to happen in this, where we have to tell people, look, content design is something very different, and it has to be customized, it has to be designed as for the learners. Like you already had most of those discussions during the day. And last and most important point I would say is strategic adoption for scalability of online learning in India, to create that kind of positive environment where practical education and training like vocational skill development, and also any other work integrated education or anything that leads to employment should be given a lot of importance, and such courses should also be considered because they demand a lot of practical use of technology. So with this, I would like to close my observations, and I wish to thank you again. I'll be happy to interact with co-panelists and the experts and take any questions. Thank you, all of you.
Yeah, thank you, Madhuri, for nicely putting some of the important aspects, especially vocational training and related issues. And I would once again come back to you, but let us go to the next panelist, Jayanta, to give his views. Jayanta.
Thank you, Dr. Sar Chandrababu. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, very much.
Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to be part of such a wonderful event. I think the topic itself is extremely relevant today in today's world. And I'm glad to see that I am being able to, I'm able to bring in a different perspective from the industry side. I had the Global Business Solutions team at Qlytics. We deal with corporate e-learning, technology, and analytics. So what we do is create customized learning solutions for large corporates in India and abroad. And the pandemic definitely has given us a lot of perspective about, how organizations, large organizations, small organizations, how they have sort of woken up. E-learning was definitely a part of everybody's agenda for long back, even before the pandemic hit. But it was sort of a support mechanism for training, right? We all know that face-to-face ILTs and on-the-job training were still the main focus. And then when it was not possible, the corporates had to find out a way of making e-learning work. And one of the first things, be it in the classrooms, in the schools or colleges or in the corporate world, was get into video, communication with the learners and start communicating there. We all know the challenges of, not having the right infrastructure, not having the right connectivity, people, working from home in environments where it is, where even working on their desktops or laptops, even with connectivity, it may be sometimes difficult with all the people at the home, not having the right environment and so on and so forth. I mean, all those challenges we are aware of. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a few of the examples that that I came across during this pandemic phase of some of the challenges the organizations faced and what we did to really overcome some of them. And it's still work in progress, but these are, I'm sure you'll find these examples interesting. The first one that I would talk about is of a company, a pharmaceutical company. And we all know while the pandemic was going on, a lot of organizations were facing challenges with business. Business was down globally, and they were all facing this challenge. And the perception was that the pharmaceutical companies were doing the best, and they, obviously because of the business they were in, the industry was doing really, really well. But some of our clients in the pharmaceutical industry were facing a huge challenge. Now, a large workforce for the pharmaceutical companies are medical representatives who are required to go and visit the doctors personally, interact with them, talk about the medicine, and explain to them, the benefits, because there are competition products available in the market, and convince that their products is the most suitable for a certain kind of patient, and so that they are, those medicines are prescribed. Even in the normal circumstances, the doctors give very little time to these medical representatives in the best of times. And now imagine a situation where you have no opportunity of going and meeting those doctors in person, because COVID means you have, limited presence of the doctors, you have social distancing norms, There are actual patients out there, so it's a risk to you, even if you going to these hospitals or clinics. So the pharmaceutical companies were in a fix as to what to do. So we had to come out with a program of training these medical representatives on how to communicate with the doctors on video calls. A lot of these medical representatives themselves were not comfortable talking on Zoom or some of these other, or Microsoft Teams or some of these other tools. And same way, a lot of these doctors weren't very comfortable with it at all. So first thing was to train the medical representatives. Now, how do you train them on actual communication through these, through these channels? We created simulations. We created simulations where they could have their own personas defined in a digital mode. There would be doctors' personas in the digital mode, and in these simulations, they would communicate with these doctors, and the communication would flow like a normal communication that it would be. And they would pick up one product to talk about. The doctor's persona and background would be defined, and they would be asked to initiate the communication. Now, in normal, learning projects or e-learning courses, which if you have branching scenarios, what you do is you give them a question and you give them a few options, and they need to click the one that they think is the most suitable, and then you sort of move ahead, get some feedback, and move on. We didn't want to do that because this was about communication. It was not about knowledge. So we made sure that they actually had to enable their microphone on their systems, speak the response to a question, record their response, and based on the response, we would analyze how accurate they were, and then based on how well they did, they would move on to the next set of questions and the next one, and the branching scenario would work in that way. Every response that they were speaking was getting recorded, and we were picking up the keywords from there and scoring them on how they did. At the end of the module, we were actually giving them competency scores in different areas. Whether when you're starting a discussion, it's called opening, and then you're probing, and then you're sort of presenting or the demo of the product and everything, and then you're closing. And so every aspect of it was being analyzed. So it was an opportunity for us to bring in our expertise, not just in learning, but technology, how to use it effectively, what technology to use, and analytics to present the data. So it worked so well that these, medical representatives, many of them got so comfortable with it. They had a wonderful time interacting with the doctors. They could convince the doctors to come on these calls and have these calls with them. And they started working on this again and again to measure their own performance as to how it was happening, because by the end of the course, you had your own scores to analyze. This also gave opportunity for future training interventions to the, the training teams, because they could then understand, whether they're on a particular, for a particular geography or a particular product or something, if there was, an overall, gap in the learning as such. So, I mean, it worked really, really well. And I think it happened only because of the pandemic. If the pandemic hadn't hit, I don't think, anybody would have thought about it, and we wouldn't have come up with a solution like this. So this was one. Another one that I would probably, talk about is, and we've delivered multiple solutions like that. We do a lot of solutions which are built using virtual reality, augmented reality, and many such, solutions. And the kind of work we do, it involves a lot of details. So, whether you're talking about the automobile manufacturing segment, or, the manufacture of desktop PCs and everything, and you get them, visualization of what the actual product is and how it works, taking things apart, putting them together, all in the virtual environments. You create large virtual environments, and you allow people to come in and collaborate and work within those environments. This is something that a lot of our clients wanted when the pandemic hit, and they started building these solutions. And then we asked them one question, that because of the pandemic, how much are your employees going to have access to these virtual reality devices? Because if you don't have access to these devices, and especially because of, again, the COVID restrictions, where you couldn't allow a lot of people to access the same device, delivery would be a challenge. And they realized that it was indeed going to be a challenge. It was impossible to get, separate wearable devices for everybody that they wanted to get trained on. And I'm talking about, people sitting in Philippines who are, supporting businesses in the US, for people who wanted to buy new cars. So you are sitting in a BPO center, you're guiding customers on what to look for in a new car and everything else, where the guy sitting in Philippines in the BPO has never ever seen that luxury car in his own life. So, so what we did was, first of all, it was creating a solution which would, where, let's take the example of these guys sitting in the Philippines. We created a virtual reality solution where they could not only see and understand all the features of this luxury car, they could, experience how it would look like when they're sitting inside, what each system within the car would do, what it does, what are the features. There's something called adaptive cruise control. So if you're driving at a certain speed with cruise control, and suddenly some other car comes into view, automatically the speed of your car will reduce, and then when the obstruction moves away, it will start increasing. Now, this is easy to say, but when you experience it yourself, you are able to explain it to anybody. We built all that. And then again, the main challenge of distribution came in. They don't have VR devices out there, so what to do? We converted the whole solution into an application which could be deployed on the web, on a server, and accessed through actual desktop app, through their desktops, with the a basic level of configuration, and seamlessly experience that entire virtual 3D environment on their desktops instead of having to bother about how where to get the VR devices, what to do, and everything else. So I think for me, what I've seen is challenges are everywhere with the pandemic, and some of the panelists today have expressed many of these challenges of IT security and bandwidth, and so many challenges. I think it's just about focusing on what potential solutions we can work with, and I think they say necessity is the mother of invention. That's what a lot of us, not just at our company, but many of your organizations and others around us have figured that out and have tried to figure out solutions. And more often than not, they have come up with some solutions that has worked. So a lot of challenges, but that's where the opportunities come from. So thank you. I will not take up any more time, and I guess we'll come back with any questions that you may have later on. I think you're on mute.
Sir, Sharad sir, you are muted.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jayanta, for bringing the industry perspective, especially giving the case studies such as the pharmaceutical industry and related issues. And we will come back to you, and we'll listen to the views of Dr. Ratnabai in the next few minutes. May I request Dr. Angel Ratnabai to give her views related to the education sector, or if anything general as well.
Very good evening to everyone. I think I'm audible to everyone. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be part of this team to where we are having a very nice discussion about the challenges and also the opportunities that this COVID-19 has created in taking up online learning and as well as the digital learning is concerned. So while just talking about the various opportunities it has created, I'll just give my views with the perspective of school education, especially, and the teacher education, and also from the experiences which we have got by initiating several activities during this COVID times. So that is what would be my perspective from. So what we have observed is like this particular pandemic situation has pushed all the teachers into a sudden shift to use digital technologies. And every teacher was suddenly expected to become an ICT integrating teacher. And also every student has been expected to become a person who can handle all the gadgets and technology in a very efficient manner. So this sudden shift in the expectation of competency has, as per our interaction with teachers, has really builded attention among the teachers and students. Though many children were very happy initially of this online classes because they always want to have the gadgets in hand where parents were restricting them, but now the situation has forced them to keep the gadgets in their hands. But on a long run, after 6 months, after 8 months, all the students have started missing that physical presence of human being around them, the peers around them, the teachers' smile and the human touch in their lives. So this, even though there are a lot of opportunities the technology has brought in, but it also has made people, as all the educators, to realize the importance more. Though we keep reading it, learning it in paper, but it has made us to realize the importance of a teacher and the peer in the learning process. And nowadays, now it's very much important to plan online learning with the interaction of peers and teachers. Because earlier when we were preparing the online courses, our concern was more on translating, like as Dr. Madhuri has brought up. It is converting all the existing physical content into a digital content. So most of us focused on that, and we have been running some courses like that. But during this pandemic, it has brought in a very important aspect of how really the course or the content, digital content, has to be delivered. And in the school education, there were a lot of work which was happening in the last 5 years to bring out a lot of digital content. But there is a different approach that has started after this pandemic because of the experiences every teacher has gone through and because of the learning that has come from the teachers in using technology. I would like to just share some of the experiences of the teachers, which has given a lot of insight as a policy makers and content developers in the field of school education. One of the teachers shared, right now all the teachers are being oriented to use Zoom, Google Meet, and all the conferencing tools and all the new features that's coming in conferencing tool to change the background and then to use avatars instead of teachers itself. So to just attract the participants. So one of the primary school teacher was sharing this experience when he was interacting with the schools, with his students. So he thought like children like cartoon and they always are interacting. This is our assumption. The children is enjoying cartoon. So why don't we bring cartoon kind of animations into education? So a lot of work is happening in that way. So this teacher also went with that perception, and then she just, he tried, when the class is going on, he shifted himself to that avatar tool so that he was presenting himself in the avatar form. All the children started crying immediately and they were not able to be brought back to the normal classroom. So the teacher immediately, he didn't first of all understand why children were crying. So with the same avatar, he was asking why you were crying. So the children expressed what happened to our teacher, whether he died or, because it was looking for them as a photo and whether he got some disease. So even the child was not even able to perceive what has happened, or we're not able to understand what has happened in that few minutes of changing. So then the teacher understood the change of avatar has disturbed the classroom. Then he came back to the normal video. It's a very small experience one of the teacher has shared. And the other experience I also would like to bring, we are talking about use of AR, VR and AI in education. But sometimes we forget that children are, all the levels of children are not still able to understand the reality and virtual space, what is real and what is virtual. This is again an experience with a primary level class child, where a child, when the teacher was using in the online class, he was showing a AR-based app, like it was Animal 4D. So he was using animal pictures on paper, and then he was showing with this camera, with this mobile, and he was trying to show how the animal was giving the sound of, he was teaching about a particular domestic and wild animal. So he was telling how the animals are making sound, how the animals move, what do they eat and all that. But at the end of the class, the child, one of the child asked, sir, when you see a picture with your mobile, they are all coming to life. Why don't you see my grandmother's picture which is hanging on the wall with your mobile, so that my grandmother will start talking to me? So these are some of the experience really that has confused teacher how to use technology. So this was one of the challenge, maybe like when we sit with teacher to understand, then there is really a need for discussing about the pedagogy of online teaching. Maybe nowadays the new terminology has come as cybergogy. and it is very frequently used in countries outside India, but it's not very frequently used in India right now. But many people have started studying the pedagogy of online education or the pedagogy of digital education. We have, when the teacher training is done, the teachers are very well trained to do classroom management, but it is not able to be as it is applied in an online situation. So everything, each and everything is being observed by a teacher as a cyber threat. So every teacher is almost into the fear of going to an online class by the word cyber security and safety, which we are trying to use it for awareness. Because as NCERT, when we do a lot of awareness program during this time, having that concern, but the teachers come, why are we forced to do this and spoil ourselves? Rather, why don't we wait and go back to our old system? It's really becoming a stopper rather than really an awareness program. So the need is really raising. How do we really take this kind of things to the teacher? So there is a need for relooking into the pedagogical approach or pedagogy which we are giving to the teachers as a training to handle the classroom. So this is one main thing which has been observed during this based on the challenges the teachers have faced. It has become a need to relook into our content which we are giving as part of the teacher training. The other challenge which is mostly reported and we have also observed, even we are sometimes fed up with this overloaded information and training. So within a short span of time, we suddenly want everyone till overnight to become an expert, which is not seriously possible. So even sometimes as authorities, we just force like do online course, do online training, learn everything online. Even teachers are like students who are new to online. We are not used to online learning. We have done maybe like during even interviews now, we have made it as a mandate to ask this question, have you done any online course? But if we reflect ourselves who is working on this, how many online courses really we did on our own? How many we have completed? So this is a thing that it is making people to feel like little, what we can say, it is really demotivating sometimes the teacher. So what is the kind of quantity of training we need to give at this time, and what is that, what is the approach we need to follow also has become a very important point based on the challenges teachers are facing. So one of the points, even we started as NCERT, we started with a lot of online courses with ambitious thoughts like let us do a lot of online capacity building programs. Then as we understood, people are forced into multiple works at this time, and the capacity building cannot happen in our fixed time. So that is one thing is like which we decided to have. Why don't we come up with a repository of smaller capacity modules? So we just did in the form of webinar, and then we made it as small capsules and made available everything in one place. So that as per the need, as per the requirement of the teachers, whenever they are free, let it be really need-based. So whenever they require, let there be a space where they can come and approach, because we were directing them, go on YouTube, everything is available, but even teachers are not really, every teacher is not really oriented to go and search in YouTube and find the right content. So we decided like all organization has to come up with, maybe like we are working towards school education. So we have come up with a repository of capacity building modules. Maybe for every sector, it is the need that has come from the challenge teachers face. And I think like I'm running out of time, whether I've crossed my time, I'm not sure. So I just would like to close with one last point. Online courses have become really, many of us have become very crazy of online courses during this time. But one thing which we really observed is what is the output of these online courses? So when we ask the teachers, what do you carry out from this? It's all the information. Maybe whatever could be available in Google. It is only thing what the teachers express as a difference is in YouTube also we can go and search all this get content and get, but we will waste the time in searching. Only now the courses are giving a customized content. But really when we go back, we are not really feeling that we have got information, but not the skill or competency to do something. So this is one of the challenges that is there in the terms of digital and online trainings that's happening during this pandemic. And it has really brought a concern. Every challenge has brought a real concern, which is to be brought into an action plan from all of us as an educator together to work towards. So this is one of the challenges, how really we measure the learning that has happened. There are only possible limitations in all the portals, have limitations of the type of question we ask, or the type of analysis we could do with the data, the type of measurement we could do with the data. So one is limitation in the portal. And the other is even some portal gives a lot of things. When we, Dr. Madhuri was telling about the scaling, it's very good to listen about the scaling, because we are doing a training of 42 lakh teachers and we could do it, which we couldn't complete in 12 months, we could do it in 6 months. But the only challenge is what we could see in the 12 months, at least by observing in the training session, what has happened with them is not able to be felt now during this online training. What is really the takeaway from them? Is not able to be felt or not able to be captured. So there is really a need. This challenge has brought a real need that we really need to look into the system as it is, how really we will make it as a potential use, not only for access and usage, but for also knowing the output with this. So I would like to stop with here. Maybe if time permits, I would like to take up the future. Thank you. Dr. Sharath, I think you are muted.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Angel, for giving details about the challenges, issues that are faced by teachers as well as students in the, especially in the elementary school education. And I think probably before we all sum up, I would like to briefly hear from Dr. Mangal Sundar Krishnan, and then we'll go for the Q&A.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. My day for the whole day, I decided to stay this time instead of taking my car and back to the office, because I saw in the morning that Sharath will be the first person to talk. And we know each other for many years. I knew that in every one of the talks, I would learn something. And throughout the whole presentation, of course, and also the panel, there are so many things which are still new to me. But let me summarize some of the difficulties that we all have. I'm really very, very happy that Mr. Jayanta talked about the difficulty of the medical representatives simulating the doctor environment on the video. I wish we did that to our teachers when they give the lectures to the students. I don't think we ever do that. We assume that the students will listen to whatever we say and will do whatever we tell them to do. We don't understand how they learn, even when they are in presence in the same room, and definitely not when they are elsewhere with their audio and the video turned off. We don't even know whether they are there, other than the fact that they had started the session. So the main difficulty with COVID, but it's also a plus point in my view, I think it destroyed the examination system, which has been running riot in the country for the last 20 years, 25 years. Because I don't think these days we trust the examinations that we conducted in the last 2 years. Not because we think that we did a good examination, the students cheated, but we don't even know how to do the online examination. Therefore, I think the process of making these students to learn by themselves, whether it's a school student or whether it is a college or whether it is training or research, I think the students now have to prove themselves in the employment industry or in their employment sector or in their research sector on the basis of what they learned and not on the basis of what they scored in the last 2 years. This is one good thing, but unfortunately, this came out of a very, very large negative point. The Madam Ratnabai's point about training school teachers, in my view, that's probably the most difficult of all the most challenging propositions, because even many of the teachers themselves do not have the necessary equipment or the online networking and other facilities, if I may interpret from, not saying so this, But I think that's true, isn't it? More than 20-30% of the teachers will still not be adequately equipped to deal with this from the technology point of view. Forget about the pedagogical point of view. I think COVID has exposed us in that sense. And so this is our fundamental and probably given opportunity to ensure that our teaching faculty have the best resources to be online whenever required. And therefore, in the future, this may even become part of a necessary learning process of, say, 30-40% of teaching is always online. The rest of it is only on the campus. And therefore, we have much more time to interact with many more students over a period of time and so on. So this is another model that we hope will eventually be looked at more carefully. The pedagogical aspects of online teaching and learning, I think they are very hard at this point of time, because only now in the 2 years we have learned what difficulties that the students have had with respect to the teaching models. And therefore, the pedagogical methods will have to evolve from now onwards. When the students are coming back to the classes and they are telling you that, did you say that in the class? Did you say that in the online lecture? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't notice. What do you say to them? That's important. So pedagogical threads will evolve in the next 1 year to see that online teaching learning is not a second cousin to the on-campus teaching model, because now it is a requirement. Dr. Madhuri, of course, had very interesting comments from I wrote down some of the things that she was talking about in the IT training, and also the fact, how do you teach people to learn the skills using the machines that they are supposed to have? I don't think there is any solution. I think the most what you did, or the most what the training centers did, is what the most they could. There's nothing beyond that. I think there is no replacement of a physical training, particularly in skills and skilling. There is no replacement for a one-to-one direct training that the individual should have with the instructor. And therefore, I mean, no matter what you do, after some time, you have to bring them to the table and say, no, now do it in front of me and get it certified. I think that's important, because these are hard skills. These are not soft skills. These are not communication. These are not explanation. These are not simply trying to do things, but these are things to demonstrate. Therefore, in the hard skills, I don't think there is a model right now in the internet that allows anybody to learn. Even the pilots, even after 90% of their learning entirely through simulation techniques, the pilots have to work for 1,000 hours with the co-pilot in order to be certified as a standalone pilot with the hard machines. And therefore, I don't think if that's true for the highest of the skills, that's true also for the lowest of the equipment handling. So I think what Dr. Madhuri mentioned about having the vocational training, having the most challenge in the era of COVID, I agree with you 100%. I think we just don't have a model yet. But now that you have seen through, I think it is important for us to come up with suggestions to the Ministry of Vocational Training, or the what we call as the National Center, NVC. What is it called? National Vocational Training Institute Center or Institute? That's a body, right?
So NSDC is the organization which is into public-private partnership, National Skill Development Corporation, NSDC.
Yeah, no, I deal with the NSDC through NASCOM for some of these things.
Yeah.
But for vocational training, I think they have now a separate NCVT or something like that, right?
NCVT is the certification regulator, sir. That's a part of.
Oh, they are only.
Yeah, it's a part of DGET, part of the ministry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you also talked about in terms of the affordability and devices for the individuals, that is true even for us. I mean, I happen to be the unfortunate head of the Department of Chemistry during the entire COVID period. And 400 students, PhD students and MSc students were out of the campus. They were thrown out of the campus in less than something like 5 days, asked to go home. And our laboratories were closed. And now, what do we do? So the difficulties that we had are very similar, slightly different in degree, but the same in kind. Many students don't have laptops. They were in the campus because they were ready to listen to the classes and borrow, beg, steal, whatever that is available. But the moment they were asked to go out at home, they are caught unaware. And about a third of our students are economically very, very poor, even in IIT in the master's program. Actually, I distributed about 12 laptops to the students through our department funds and paid for the network connection of some of the students because they said they don't have network connections for the donglers because their network is working half time and the other time when the network is on, the power will not be there in their villages and so on. So you see, therefore the challenges are not the challenges of the program or the challenges of the paradigm, but the challenges of infrastructure. And therefore, I don't think we have a direct solution to that unless the infrastructure improves. But it's important for us to use more economical video methods. Zoom videos are much better than class recorded videos or studio recorded videos because the bandwidth consumption is much lower. And even that, you need to actually optimize each and every video in order to allow the students to download them. And we try to make an arrangement with the NIC throughout the country to allow the IIT students with the ID card to go to the NIC and use their download bandwidth to download the lessons and so on. So I think all kinds of practical problems that you have seen, and many of you have expressed in your own domain, I have seen the same thing, but now the solution is extremely simple. A very categorized pedagogical method for teaching online. Now, since most teachers understand what online teaching is all about, and most trainers understand what online teaching is all about, and more importantly, most students understand what it is to be without being in a class or without being in a campus, constantly watched by their parents 24 hours a day, weeks after weeks, months after months. The tutor is asking, are you not sitting in the class today? Why are you not listening to the lectures? You know, there are many students of ours who have come back saying that, please tell us when we can come. The first day we will come offload ourselves from home. My parents are unbearable to us in terms of our study and so on. So that's also social aspect. But we encourage the student to tell them that this is the best time that you can live with your parents while you are also studying. Please take care of them and so on. So you see, each domain has its own pandemic, outcomes. I don't want to go on and on. There are many more. Therefore, I would simply say that this panelist topic, Professor Sarath Babu, will also help me in identifying the key about 6 or 7 recommendations that we can give to the educationists and to the policymakers, to the MIT and so on. What is it that you can do immediately in order to lessen the effect of COVID? Should we have a third wave? Should we go through another period? What is it that we need to do? I think that we need to come through, and all of these discussions have been very helpful to me. I've learned a lot, Sarath. I just stayed over because I didn't want to go except for a break in networking every now and then. I think I've enjoyed learning and reading as usual with all the LL texts that you started organizing in 2001. Is that right? 2001?
Yes, sir.
2001, if I remember. So I look forward to that. Please, I'm done. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Mangal. It is really very nicely you have brought out the discussions that happened with the 3 experts panelists, and in fact you have simplified my job. But I would like to see any participants have any questions. Dr. Srikanth, would you like to
Yes,
take those questions?
Yeah, sir. Some couple of questions from the participants, sir.
Yeah.
So one question is, in case of blended learning or online classes, how can the teachers play the same role? Do they require to play this role at all? So this is one question from the participants, sir. I think any of the panelists, if they want to answer this.
May I answer?
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
sir. Yes.
Thank you. Actually, this is one question which they keep asking us when we tell about the use of technology. However, blended learning is there. Teacher's role is very important, and educator role is very important to plan even the blended learning part. Because even if it is an online content, if there is some content which is being given online, it has to be planned and prepared and designed in a way to reach that objective. So this is something which we need to take away from our mind, that without the role of an educator, the learning is not going to happen. Or it's not that like We are the knowledge providers, but we are the facilitators of the learning that's happening to provide the extreme content and in a customized way to the need of the teachers. If anybody would like to.
One more question for the panelists. Is there anything which also talks about teaching style of a teacher? Most of the things seems to be getting hold of the children.
That's a good one.
So any of the panelists would like to answer?
If I may, I don't necessarily have a clear answer for this, but I would like to say that the teaching style of a teacher
So Jayanta, you are not on the audio.
Network.
Yeah, you might be.
subject was as relevant in the, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, are you able to hear me now?
Sir, James Sensor, I think your network is down a bit. If you can.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I think you might turn off. Yeah, the video turn off
Yeah.
might give you some.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible. You are audible.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to say that, the teaching style of teachers, I think was relevant before the pandemic, many, many years ago, and is still relevant and is going to be relevant, irrespective of whether you're doing an online class or, in the classroom face to face. It's something that I think every teacher grows to learn what works best for them and what works best for their, students. And no teacher can ever, I don't think any teacher has ever been able to claim that they can make every student learn equally well. But good teachers get a sense of what works, what doesn't work with the students. And same way, students also know how to make, how to get the best learning out of their teachers over a period of time. So I think this question, I don't know if there's a clear answer to this. Maybe it's a little more difficult because of the the online training today. Every teacher is now struggling to figure out what's the best fit for themselves. So we probably have to, support them through this phase and through constructive feedback and, also monitoring of what is working for them and what is working for children. It can slowly evolve. But again, I think it's always been relevant and will remain.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
Yes, of course.
So Jayanta, if you are done, if you are finished, you have more to say?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
No, you are done. Okay. The teaching style is very important, but what is important for the teachers to recognize is that if they have not done live classes or online video classes and things like that, to spend a couple of hours recording their videos in private and listening to themselves to see whether they are making any sense in the video better than that they were doing in the classroom. I think that's important because the video medium is also a powerful medium where if you tend to be not continuous and if you tend to be not flowing properly, the video medium basically kills you within a few minutes. And people will walk away much more quickly from you by turning off the screen and shutting off the audio. You would assume that they are there, but you will still be the asariri and nobody will be listening to you. Therefore, it's very important. The teaching style of the teacher is extremely important, but the teacher must go back and redo a little bit of their style in relevance to the process of the medium carrying the message. That to me is as important as the style of the individual teacher is. That self-introspection is extremely important.
So I would just like to add one point here, sir. And perhaps it may be wrong to assume that all teachers will take this in a very positive way, because in my interactions during the last 1 year plus, in a similar kind of a situation, they are not video friendly. People are kind of apprehensive. Not every one of us has this inbuilt thing in us. And only those who have a certain passion, maybe they make it to the next level of the media adoption. But I think we should not force them. I feel we should pick up teachers who are naturally inclined towards presenting themselves and all, rather than imposing on every teacher. I think there we have to find some solution.
No, it's not about the imposing. What I am suggesting to the teachers is that this is a medium in which they will definitely find themselves much more exposed to than before, because the videos can be played back. And I know even today in IIT, there are a few professors who refuse to circulate their video during the pandemic. They said, my slides will be available to you. If you don't attend my classes online, you miss my videos. While that is technically against our Senate resolution that videos should be made available online, because students do not have consistent bandwidth and students do not have consistent technology backup. A few professors have stayed away from that precisely for what you said. They are very unfriendly with the medium. And there are teachers who say, I don't want to teach anything that I would do in my regular class. Through this process, I will give them the slides and speak about half an hour, give them 10. So that's another style of teaching, essentially. That's it. I mean, I would put it that way. It is still another style of teaching, but they have adopted it themselves. We can't help much about that. I mean, there are people who would say, who are very friendly, people who would go all out to do everything possible. They will record, re-record, re-edit, everything, do that. And then there are those who just wouldn't bother. You have all of them, yeah.
So can I add
Just
on
like
to
students, we have
this?
all kinds of teachers.
Yeah, Dr. Srikanth, any more questions?
I think Madam wants to. I think Angel Madam wants to.
Yeah. Actually, this teaching style and student style is nothing not new with the pandemic or online, because it was always there in our classroom also, because the moment we start about student-centric, learner-centric approach, this is a wrong thought which comes to a teacher. So always why student is given importance is there no skill? Because this question was even before online education started, this was there. But if we really see, if we even interact with the teachers, ultimately a teacher looks at, it's not about showing what skill set the teacher has, but rather to understand that what is the output which comes out of that whole coordination or co-learning between the teacher and the learner itself. So this was the challenge, or this was a thought which was earlier. So it was scoped up and it was managed by teachers by doing like, deciding upon one side, teacher decided that I'll teach only in this style, you try to follow me. Or some teachers try to understand the need of the student and then they adjust with the learner. So some of this aspect we also had when we started doing this online, sir, as was telling, we can't expect everyone to stand before camera. We have experience of teacher crying before the camera. And the first time we started having these live sessions. So they were the very excellent teacher, national awarded teachers, but they cried before the camera that they can't even present, just take the class. They said, I can only take a class when a child is before me. So we simulated the classroom to bring forth child and making them to sit here and then giving the feel of a classroom. But one of the experience which I heard from the teacher is one of the school principal was sharing this, that some of the teachers were very reluctant to do the classroom or record the classroom for this program. So what they did is like they just made the teacher to teach the way she wants. But then they kept the camera side and without informing them, and then just recorded that. And then they showed to the teacher. And the teacher was very much convinced because the fear of camera was not there when they did it. So it is all about to think about how to really handle. That's all about it.
One final question to the panelists. How do we provide lab as a service to students for conducting experiments or projects? Can you please provide your views on this? Anyone from the panelists would like to answer?
Yeah, I think this is basically looking at cloud services, A to Z as a service, and that FOSS Lab as a service, an interesting proposition. Actually, Dr. Seshikumar has talked about virtual labs, and there was some discussion or presentations on remote labs. So these labs services could be provided, especially when the instrumentation is very expensive. Lab as a service would be economical, and it would also reach wider the number of schools or institutes, depending on what level of lab that we are looking at. I feel this is feasible. I think like we are providing infrastructure as a service, software as a service, security as a service, everything as a service through the cloud computing kind of an environment in technology. I think this is a feasible thing, and probably we can look at that. So,
any other views from the panelists or?
Well, I think labs are available as a service. I think for many organizations are providing them today. I think one of the panelists earlier in the day also spoke about the labs. It depends on what kind of labs you're really looking for. If you are able to envision the requirements of the learners or the students well enough, there are tools available to build these labs and make them available to everybody. I think it's already being done. In many cases, we know. I mean, I'm not talking. I would not talk in terms of the the education sector as such, but in the corporate environment, we are doing that. There are training organizations who train people on how to assemble hardware, for example. Where we have worked with them to build labs where they can understand, how to change, say, the hard disk of a CPU of a particular model. What happens in case of a laptop? How does it work differently? I mean, so there are many such examples, and once you build them, you obviously have to understand what all elements can be standardized. Because if certain elements keep changing, then you have to keep changing the structure of the lab, which may not be feasible. So whatever elements that are standardized, that can definitely be used as part of the lab and provided.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. In fact, I also remember like organizations like IBM providing quantum computing on the cloud. That is actual few qubits of quantum computing is available for the people to conduct experiments. This is happening in such high-tech areas. I think bring it to the lower level, like OLabs kind of a thing that we were talking about, or many other remote labs, is a possibility we can explore in a big way. Thank you. I think if there are no more questions, thank you all panelists for your excellent inputs in different sectors of vocational training and industry, and also the academic environment. And Professor Mangal Sundar Krishnan has given a lot of ideas to work on. I feel to conclude, the general problems are affordability of devices, connectivity, platforms, keeping the economic disparity over broad section of people. It is not just into the rural only. Even in cities, the students are, as Professor Mangal Sundar has mentioned, even in IIT students are having issues with related to the devices and the kind of affordability. So this is one thing we need to look at the national level, how the devices could be made affordable, because smartphones are the need of the hour. If we how to meet many requirements, feature phones probably would not be able to meet. There's one key device. So how do we bring the smartphones kind of a cost bring to lower level? Whereas I think networking costs are slowly coming down. It all depends on various other ecosystem that we build. So the infrastructure is continued to be built through NOFN kind of programs, and like NKN for high-end institutes, whether the same kind of an NKN can be extended to all educational institutes, that would probably give a free internet connectivity. Then it's like a free oxygen available, which is also not becoming difficult. Can we have the free network connection to all academic institutes so that they would be able to not to worry about the bandwidth at all? They connect and they are getting like electric power that they get, they should get the bandwidth. If that kind of a thing can happen, that will be a good solution. And we are also looking at the possibility of how to build the competency of teachers. I think whether it is always on-job training for a teacher. It's always they try to teach new courses. It's a kind of a thing they learn while teaching, and most of the time it happens. So this is I feel to increase the competency of teachers. It's the ecosystem around them, the school managements, and also the like Dr. Angel has given an example of how they manage to make a teacher to gain confidence in delivering a video lecture. I think we need to look at some of such solutions. I think third important thing is the pedagogical approach, where Professor Mangal has clearly mentioned that it's evolving because the situation earlier days where we were talking about Bloom's taxonomy or ADDIE kind of taxonomies or some andragogy methods and all that. But today, the world, the total global change, not only in India. So this kind of an approach, what is the best approach has to be studied. Probably it's a good idea that we recommend to the, the concerned authorities to arrive at a kind of a study and a document to meet the pedagogical approach on a larger scale to meet all sections of academic institutions. So these are some ideas that we're getting, but to work on all these things, it's important that industry, academia, government has to work together, collaboratively work. And I'm happy to see that Sir is closely working with NASSCOM, and also already future prime skills is one of the focus area of NASSCOM, and the CDAC kind of organizations are working on skills development. So there is a possibility that the similar program could be, looked at to look at these kind of problems. How do we address? So technology is in general, we understand that is not a major issue, but how to reach and how we make technology as user-friendly as possible, as simple as possible. That is interoperability kind of thing. So standardization, compliance to standards is another important aspect people can look at. And one of the, I liked one thing, morning chairman of CBSE told about the, making the packets of learnable modules, which is actually a kind of a SCOM compliance is what it teaches is the granularity of learnability. So this would help instead of having long video lectures and so on. Can we make small granules which could be stitched for the needs of specific, learner-centric or specific personalized learning kind of a thing. So these are few things that comes across. If I have missed and Dr. Mangal would like to add any recommendations at this point of time.
I think I've spoken enough today.
Yeah. I think it's a long day for all participants and also the speakers and panelists. And from my side, I thank you all panelists and Dr. Jayanta, Dr. Angel and Dr. Madhuri for very excellent inputs. And Professor Mangal is always our guru in e-learning and technologies from all aspects.
I started off as a student, please remember.
So,
I'm still a student.
So this is something Sarath learned, that do something which the others have not done and then keep moving to others without gaining much. Whereas Dr. Mangal Sundar Krishnan over a period of time has become a kind of a, Everest in e-learning. So NPTEL is the best example for us to see the kind of a commitment with which you have, dedicatedly given a great program, not only just India, it's over entire world is using NPTEL contributions. Thank you, sir. Thanks always to you for being with us. And thanks to CDAC for continuing to organize this. It's a kind of a few years back, we thought that e-learning technologies won't change that fast. So, and we also didn't have affordability to do every year. So we made it 4-year once kind of a program. So that's continuing. Now CDAC has to think whether they would like to do year on year or continue to do this 4 years once. Thank you. With this, I would like to close from my end. Over to the organizers. Once again, thanking Lakshmi, Suri, Kumar, Srikanth, and all team members, and especially to Kumar for coordinating this very nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and the panelists. Now I request Kumar to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Srikanth. It is my privilege to propose vote of thanks at the end of 6th National Conference on E-Learning and E-Learning Technologies, LLTech 2021. The event is supported by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. At the outset, I would like to express my profound gratitude to our Chief Guest, Sri Manoj Ahuja, IAS, Chairman, CBSE Ministry of Education, for inaugurating the conference. I thank our guest of honor, Sri Jaideep Kumar Mishra, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, for gracing the event and addressing the gathering. I thank Colonel A.K. Nath, Director General CDAC, for gracing the event and delivering presidential address. I would like to thank our guest of honor, Dr. Mangal Sundar Krishnan of IIT Madras, for delivering special address and sharing his valuable views and experiences during panel discussion. I also thank Dr. N. Sirachandra Babu, Executive Director, CERTS Chennai, who has been an inspiration in organizing LLTech conference. I would like to express my sincere thanks to all the invited speakers and panelists, Dr. M. Seshkumar, Dr. Ramkrishna Pasumurthy, Dr. S. Ramadevi, Dr. S.V. Srikanth, Dr. Kamal Bijlani, Mr. Pramod Kumar, Dr. N.S. Srikanth, Dr. Shitanshu Mishra, Dr. Madhuri Dubey, Dr. Angel Ratnabai, Mr. Jayanta Sen, for accepting our invitation, for delivering invited talks, and sharing your valuable views during the panel discussion. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our director, Mrs. P.R. Lakshmi Ishwari, CDAC Hyderabad, for her guidance and support in every activity of LLTech 2021. I take this opportunity to extend our sincere thanks to all the invitees and participants for joining this event of national importance. We are extremely grateful to Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology for supporting this conference. Today, around 200 members from various universities, colleges, national institutes, research institutes participated in the virtual event. We request all the participants to share your valuable feedback for improving such events. Feedback form link is shared with all the participants in the chat box, and tomorrow morning we'll be sharing the feedback link through mail also. With this, we have come to the end of 6th National Conference on E-Learning and E-Learning Technologies 2021. Once again, I thank you all for your kind support in organizing this event. Thank you all and good night. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Have a good evening to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir.